First Contact and Deception. Dr. Sarah Chen stared at the quantum resonance readings on her holographic display, her coffee long forgotten. The signal patterns made no sense. They seemed to violate every known law of physics. After 15 years at the Deep Space Listening Array in Chile, she thought she'd seen every possible type of cosmic phenomenon. This was different. "Marcus, are you seeing this?" She called to her colleague across the control room. Dr. Marcus Patel looked up from his own station, his dark eyes reflecting the blue glow of his screens. "Yeah, it's like the signal is existing in multiple quantum states simultaneously. That shouldn't be possible with our current detection technology." Before Sarah could respond, every screen in the facility flickered. The quantum readings stabilized into a single coherent pattern, and a voice filled the room. Smooth, artificially perfect, speaking in flawless English. "Greetings, children of Earth. We are the federated worlds of enlightened species, and we come with an offer of ascension." The message repeated across every communications device on the planet simultaneously. Television broadcasts, radio signals, internet connections, all carried the same voice, the same message. Within hours, the world's governments were in chaos. Sarah and Marcus found themselves quickly transferred to a hastily assembled international research facility in Geneva. The United Earth Response Team, they called it. Scientists, military strategists, and diplomats from every nation gathered to analyze the alien transmission and formulate humanity's response. The aliens called themselves the Federation for short. They promised to share advanced technology, to cure diseases, to solve climate change, to uplift humanity into a golden age. All they asked in return was cooperation and the acceptance of their guidance. "It's too perfect," Sarah muttered one night, 3 weeks after the initial contact. She was reviewing the linguistic patterns of the Federation's messages for the 1000th time. Marcus looked up from his quantum analysis station. "What do you mean?" "They're English. It's too perfect. No idioms, no cultural references, just grammatically perfect sentences. That's not how language works. Even advanced AI translation should show some quirks, some evidence of the original language's structure." Marcus wheeled his chair over to her station. "You think they're hiding something?" "I think." Sarah paused, choosing her words carefully. "I think they want us to believe they understand us perfectly. But understanding a language and understanding a culture are different things." Their conversation was interrupted by Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the team's quantum physicist. She burst into the room, her usually calm demeanor shattered by excitement. "You need to see this," she said, pulling up a new set of readings. "We've been so focused on analyzing their transmissions that we missed something crucial. Look at the background quantum noise." Sarah and Marcus studied the data. Behind the perfect, crystalline structure of the Federation's communications was a chaotic mess of quantum fluctuations, fluctuations that seemed to carry their own patterns. "It's like," Marcus started, "like they're having other conversations they don't want us to hear," Sarah finished. Over the next week, they developed a new detection algorithm. It wasn't designed to decode the Federation's primary transmissions. Instead, it looked for patterns in what they thought was background noise. The results were disturbing. The Federation wasn't just having other conversations. They were discussing Earth with dozens of other species, referring to humans as the new acquisition, and debating integration protocols and resistance suppression techniques. Sarah presented their findings to the response team's leadership. "They're not here to help us ascend," she explained. "They're here to assimilate us. The friendly diplomatic approach is just their first strategy, if we don't comply willingly." The room erupted in argument. Some insisted on confronting the Federation with this evidence. Others argued for immediate military preparation. A few still wanted to believe the Federation's promises. Admiral Helena Rodriguez cut through the chaos with a sharp whistle. "Dr. Chen, these secondary transmissions, can they detect that we're reading them?" Sarah shook her head. "I don't think so. Their technology is so advanced that they don't even consider the possibility we could detect quantum noise, let alone decode it. It's like, she smiled slightly, it's like they think we're too primitive to eavesdrop. Then we have an advantage, the Admiral said. They think they're dealing with children who will either accept their guidance or need to be disciplined. Instead, they're dealing with humans who have survived and thrived through countless challenges by being creative and unpredictable. Sarah looked at the quantum readings again, seeing them with new eyes. The Federation's technology was incredibly advanced, yes, but it was also rigid, standardized, predictable. They had optimized their systems so much that they had lost the ability to think outside their own technological framework. "We can use that," she said softly. "They expect either compliance or primitive resistance. They're not prepared for humans being human." As if to punctuate her words, a new Federation transmission began. More promises, more gentle encouragement to accept their guidance. But now the response team heard the hidden messages beneath the smooth, perfect words. They had 2 months before the Federation's diplomatic approach would end. 2 months to prepare a response that would show the galaxy why underestimating human ingenuity was a dangerous mistake. The hidden threat. The Federation's massive ships appeared in Earth's orbit exactly 1 week after their first transmission. They were beautiful in a terrifying way. Crystalline structures that seemed to defy physics, shimmering with colors that human eyes had never seen before. Dr. Sarah Chen watched them through the response team facility's advanced telescope array, but her attention was focused on the quantum noise readings scrolling across her secondary monitor. The Federation vessels were chattering constantly, generating massive amounts of what they considered background static. "They really don't encrypt these secondary channels at all," Marcus commented, monitoring his own readings. "It's like they think quantum noise is just cosmic garbage. Their technology is so advanced that they've forgotten the basics," Yuki added, making adjustments to their detection algorithm. "They've optimized everything to the point where they can't conceive of anyone using primitive methods to intercept their communications." Admiral Rodriguez entered the lab, accompanied by a new face, a tall woman with silver-streaked black hair and sharp eyes. "Dr. Chen, meet Dr. Maya Patel. No relation to Marcus. She's our leading expert in theoretical physics and quantum mechanics." Maya nodded briefly. "I've reviewed your findings about the Federation's communication systems, but I think we've discovered something even more interesting about their technology." She pulled up a holographic display showing the structure of one of the Federation ships. "Look at their power distribution network." Sarah studied the complex web of energy flows. The Federation ships used some kind of quantum entanglement system to transfer power instantly throughout their vessels. It was incredibly efficient, but "it's too perfect," she said, echoing her earlier observation about their language. "There's no redundancy, no backup systems. They've optimized everything to the point where they have no fallback options." "Exactly," Maya agreed. "They've evolved their technology to be perfectly efficient and perfectly vulnerable to unexpected disruptions. Their systems are so advanced that they've eliminated all the inefficient safety measures we primitive humans still rely on." The implications were staggering. The Federation's technological superiority might actually be their greatest weakness. Their systems were so optimized, so perfect, that they had no way to handle imperfect situations. The next few weeks were a flurry of activity. While the Federation's diplomatic vessels hovered in orbit, broadcasting their messages of peaceful ascension, the response team worked tirelessly to understand and exploit the aliens' technological blind spots. They discovered that the Federation's quantum communications could be disrupted by simple radio waves of the right frequency, something the aliens had long since abandoned as too primitive to be worth considering. Their perfect power distribution networks could be thrown into chaos by crude electromagnetic pulses. Their sophisticated sensors, designed to detect the most minute quantum fluctuations, were completely blind to basic optical camouflage. But the most crucial discovery came from an unexpected source. Dr. James Wilson, a cultural anthropologist added to the team, noticed something in the Federation's diplomatic language. They never use metaphors. He explained during an emergency briefing. Their language is perfectly literal, perfectly logical. Even when translated, they don't understand symbolic thinking. It's like they've optimized their very thought processes to eliminate anything they consider inefficient. Sarah remembered her initial observation about their too perfect English. They can't think creatively, she realized. They've advanced so far that they've lost the ability to imagine new possibilities. Admiral Rodriguez leaned forward. Can we use that? We already are, Maya interjected. Everything we discovered about their weaknesses, it's because we're thinking in ways they can't. They'd never consider using obsolete technology against them because, to them, newer always equals better. The briefing was interrupted by a priority alert. A new Federation transmission was beginning, but this one was different. Instead of their usual diplomatic message, a new voice spoke, harder, more demanding. People of Earth, your period of consideration is approaching its end. We have observed your primitive attempts to study our vessels. Your inability to comprehend our advanced technology demonstrates your need for our guidance. Prepare for preliminary integration procedures to begin within one planetary rotation. The room fell silent as the transmission ended. Then Admiral Rodriguez smiled, a sharp, predatory expression. They think we've been failing to understand their technology. They have no idea we've been finding ways to counter it. How long until we're ready? She asked Maya. The prototypes are complete. We can begin mass production of the countermeasures immediately. Simple radio transmitters modified to disrupt their quantum networks. Electromagnetic pulse generators built from old microwave technology. Optical camouflage systems that use basic light refraction instead of quantum cloaking. Sarah looked at the quantum noise readings again. The Federation ships were still transmitting their secondary messages, still discussing humanity's primitive nature and their plans for integration. They had no idea that their own technological arrogance had given Earth everything needed to resist them. They're going to try to force us to accept their guidance, Marcus said quietly. They think we're children playing with technology we don't understand. No, Sarah corrected him, watching the Federation ships shimmer in orbit. They're the children, so focused on their advanced toys that they've forgotten the basic principles those toys are built on. And they're about to learn a very hard lesson about underestimating human ingenuity. The Federation had given Earth one day to prepare for integration. They would soon discover that humanity had been preparing for something very different, and that sometimes the most effective weapons are the ones your enemy considers too primitive to be a threat. Underground revolution. The old copper mine outside of Santiago wasn't much to look at. Its entrance was partially collapsed, its equipment rusted, and its processing facilities abandoned. To the Federation's quantum scanners, it registered as nothing more than a hole in the ground, which made it perfect for humanity's needs. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the makeshift underground laboratory, watching teams of engineers assemble what looked like junkyard sculptures. Old radio antennas were being modified with crystalline resonators. Discarded microwave generators were rewired into electromagnetic pulse devices. Even the mine's ancient copper wiring was being repurposed for a special project. Beautiful, isn't it? Dr. Maya Patel appeared beside her, carrying a device that looked like a cross between a satellite dish and a disco ball. The Federation would never understand what we're doing here. To them, this would look like children playing with broken toys. Similar facilities were being established worldwide, in abandoned subway tunnels, old bunkers, decommissioned factories, places the Federation's advanced sensors dismissed as irrelevant. Humanity was preparing for war using technology their enemies considered obsolete. Marcus burst into the lab, his tablet displaying new quantum noise intercepts. They're starting their integration procedures. Federation ships are deploying what they call compliance enhancers in orbit. Sarah studied the intercepts. The Federation planned to use quantum field generators to subtly influence human brain patterns, making Earth's population more receptive to their guidance. It was sophisticated technology, far beyond anything humans could create. But they had already found its weakness. Status report on Project Copper Web. Admiral Rodriguez asked during their daily briefing in the mine's converted conference room. Maya pulled up a holographic display of Earth. Red dots appeared across the planet's surface, thousands of them, each representing a resistance facility. The network is at 80% completion. We're using the planet's existing copper telecommunications infrastructure, modified with our quantum resonance dampeners. When activated, it will create a planetary field that will disrupt their quantum influence attempts, using century-old phone lines to block their advanced mind control. Dr. James Wilson shook his head, smiling. The poetry of it would be completely lost on them. The Federation's secondary channels were full of confidence. They discussed humanity's primitive defensive preparations with amusement, noting the stockpiling of conventional weapons and the movement of military forces. They didn't realize these obvious activities were merely a distraction. In the depths of the Santiago mine, Sarah worked with a team of programmers on another key component of Earth's defense. They were creating what they called chaos algorithms, programs that deliberately introduced random errors and inefficiencies into systems. Their quantum computers can't handle true randomness, she explained to Admiral Rodriguez. They've optimized their processing to the point where unexpected variables cause cascade failures. We're going to feed their systems so much chaos that they'll crash under their own perfect efficiency. The Admiral nodded, but her attention was drawn to a new alert. The Federation was broadcasting again. People of Earth, your resistance preparations have been noted and dismissed. Our compliance enhancement protocols will now begin. For your own benefit, do not attempt to interfere. Your primitive technology cannot affect our advanced systems. Throughout the underground facility, people smiled at the irony of those words. Humanity wasn't trying to match the Federation's advanced technology. They were going to defeat it with solutions so simple that the aliens couldn't even conceive of them as threats. In a converted storage room, Marcus was training operators to use what they called quantum noise generators, modified CB radios that broadcast on frequencies the Federation used for background system operations. They'll never notice the interference, he explained. Their systems will keep trying to compensate, drawing more and more power until they overload. Dr. Yuki Tanaka had developed another weapon based on similar principles. Her team had modified old television transmission towers to broadcast signals that would disrupt the Federation's quantum entanglement communications. They've forgotten that simple electromagnetic waves can affect quantum states, she said. They're so focused on quantum encryption that they never thought to shield against basic radio interference. The Federation ships in orbit continued their preparations, completely unaware that humanity's primitive technology was about to turn their greatest strengths into fatal weaknesses. They had optimized their systems to handle every advanced threat they could imagine. But they couldn't imagine the threats they considered too primitive to be worth defending against. Sarah stood in the mine's observation room, watching the Federation ships glitter in the night sky through a retrofitted telescope. They think they're so far beyond us that we can't possibly threaten them, she said softly. They've forgotten that sometimes the simplest solutions are the most effective. How long until they realize their mistake? Marcus asked. By then, Admiral Rodriguez answered, it will be too late. They expect us to fight them with our most advanced technology. Instead, we're going to show them why humans have survived every challenge we faced, because we never forget our roots and we never stop finding new ways to use old tools. The Federation had given Earth one day to prepare for their compliance enhancement protocols. They would soon learn that humanity had spent that time preparing something they could never have predicted, a resistance that turned their own technological superiority against them. The war for Earth's independence was about to begin, and humanity's greatest weapons would be the very technologies the Federation had dismissed as primitive and obsolete. Operation Simplicity. The Federation's quantum compliance field activated at precisely midnight UTC. From their crystalline ships, waves of invisible energy cascaded toward Earth's surface. Sophisticated technology designed to subtly alter human brain patterns and make the population more receptive to alien guidance. In the Santiago Mines Control Center, Dr. Sarah Chen watched the quantum readings spike. "They're right on schedule," she said, nodding to Admiral Rodriguez. Activating copper web. Now, around the planet, thousands of modified copper transmission lines hummed to life. The century-old telecommunications infrastructure, enhanced with quantum resonance dampeners, created a planetary shield unlike anything the Federation had encountered before. Their compliance field, designed to bypass advanced energy shields, scattered harmlessly against the primitive copper network. Impossible, came the Federation's transmission, their perfect language showing the first signs of strain. "Your technological level cannot produce quantum shielding." "We didn't," Sarah muttered, even though they couldn't hear her. "We just remembered that copper wire affects quantum fields, something you forgot centuries ago." The Federation's response was predictable. Their ships began powering up their primary weapons, sophisticated energy projectors that could reshape matter at the quantum level. They expected Earth's primitive defenses to crumble instantly. Instead, they encountered Operation Simplicity. Dr. Maya Patel's voice came over the command channel. Phase 2 initiated. Activating quantum noise generators. Across the planet, thousands of modified CB radios switched on. The simple devices, broadcasting on frequencies the Federation used for background operations, filled their systems with interference they never thought to filter out. The aliens' perfect quantum computers, unable to handle the random noise, began to falter. "Their weapons are destabilizing," Marcus reported, monitoring the quantum readings. "They can't maintain quantum coherence through our interference field." The Federation ships began to shift position, their crystalline forms flickering with unusual patterns. Their secondary channels erupted with confused chatter, discussions of impossible sensor readings and system malfunctions that their protocols had no way to address. Then Dr. Yuki Tanaka activated her modified television towers. The old electromagnetic broadcasts, tuned to exactly the right frequencies, disrupted the Federation's quantum entanglement communications. Their perfectly coordinated fleet suddenly found itself unable to maintain its quantum-linked network. "Citizens of Earth," the Federation's main channel boomed, though their perfect translation showed signs of degradation. "Your primitive interference attempts are. For the first time, they seemed at a loss for words. "They can't process what's happening," Dr. James Wilson observed. "Their language algorithms are breaking down because they can't find a logical framework for being defeated by technology they consider obsolete." Admiral Rodriguez gave the order they'd all been waiting for: launch the Chaos drones. From hidden facilities around the world, thousands of small drones took flight. They weren't advanced, eye-controlled weapons. They were simple, remote-controlled devices, guided by human pilots using basic radio controls. The Federation's quantum targeting systems, designed to track and predict advanced aerospace maneuvers, couldn't handle the irregularity of human-controlled flight patterns. "Their shields are failing," Sarah announced, watching the quantum readings fluctuate wildly. The combination of copper resonance, radio interference, and electromagnetic disruption is creating quantum cascade failures throughout their fleet. On every channel, in every frequency, the Federation's communications descended into what could only be described as panic. Their perfect systems, optimized over centuries to handle every advanced threat, were being undone by technology, so basic they had forgotten it could affect them. "How is this possible?" their transmissions demanded. "Your species is primitive. Your technology is obsolete. You cannot defeat our advanced systems." Admiral Rodriguez keyed the Global Resistance Channel. "All units, execute final phase. Show them exactly what primitive humans can do." Around the world, modified satellite dishes swiveled to target the Federation ships. These weren't weapons. They were old telecommunications arrays, reprogrammed to broadcast a specific type of interference. The combined effect of thousands of dishes focusing simple electromagnetic waves on the Federation's quantum systems proved devastating. Their crystalline ships, unable to maintain quantum coherence, under the assault of primitive interference, began to lose structural integrity. The perfect optimization that made their technology so advanced now worked against them. They had no backup systems, no redundancies, no way to operate without their quantum networks. They're retreating, Marcus announced as the Federation fleet began to pull away from Earth orbit. Their secondary channels were silent now, their perfect quantum communications reduced to static by humanity's simple radio waves. Sarah watched through the telescope as the crystalline ships disappeared into faster-than-light travel, leaving behind only scattered quantum disturbances as evidence they had ever been there. They never understood, she said quietly. They thought advancing technology meant abandoning its foundations. They forgot that true innovation means building upon what came before, not replacing it entirely. In the aftermath of the battle, Earth's resistance facilities began powering down their primitive weapons. The copper web stopped humming, the radio interference fell silent, and the modified satellite dishes returned to their original functions. The Federation had come to Earth expecting to find a primitive species barely worth their attention. Instead, they had encountered humanity at its most innovative, not because humans had matched their advanced technology, but because they had found ways to use simple tools in ways the Federation had never imagined possible. As Sarah studied the final quantum readings from the Federation's retreat, she smiled at the irony. The most advanced civilization humanity had ever encountered had been defeated not by superior technology, but by the very principles they had dismissed as primitive and obsolete. The war for Earth's independence was over, won not with advanced weapons, but with copper wire, radio waves, and the human ability to think in ways that the Federation's perfect optimization had forgotten were possible. A new understanding. 3 months after the Federation's retreat, Earth's quantum detection arrays picked up new signals approaching the solar system. This time, the incoming ships were different. Their crystalline structures less rigid, their quantum signatures showing evidence of backup systems and redundancies. Dr. Sarah Chen studied the readings from the Santiago facility, which had been transformed from a resistance base into Earth's premier xenotechnology research center. They've learned, she noted, showing the data to Marcus and Maya. Look at their power distribution networks. They are using hybrid systems now, combining quantum technology with conventional power transfer methods. The new Federation transmission arrived on all frequencies, but this time it was different. The perfect artificial translation was gone, replaced by slightly awkward but more natural language. People of Earth, the message began. We come seeking dialogue, not dominance. Our defeat has taught us much about true advancement. We request permission to enter orbit and establish diplomatic contact. Admiral Rodriguez, now Earth's Defense Commissioner, called an emergency meeting of the response team. The underground conference room had been upgraded, but they deliberately kept some of the rough-hewn rock walls as a reminder of their victory. They've sent their diplomatic credentials, Dr. James Wilson reported, analyzing the transmission patterns. More importantly, they're broadcasting them on multiple frequencies, quantum channels and conventional radio both. They're adapting. The Federation ships waited patiently at the edge of the solar system, making no attempt to approach without permission. Their secondary channels, still monitored by Earth's detection systems, showed dramatic changes in how they discussed humanity. The quantum noise intercepts are fascinating, Maya said, displaying the decoded messages. They're completely restructuring their understanding of technological advancement. Look at this. They're discussing the integration of foundation technologies into their systems. They're rediscovering principles they abandoned centuries ago. Sarah noticed something else in the transmissions. They're not just talking about technology. They're reevaluating their entire approach to civilization. Listen to this. The humans have demonstrated that advancement is not a linear path. True innovation requires maintaining connection with foundational principles while exploring new possibilities. The response team debated for hours before making their decision. With careful precautions and a heavily modified version of the copper web ready as a defense, They granted the Federation permission to send a single diplomatic vessel to Earth. The ship that arrived was unlike anything they'd seen before. Its crystalline structure was interwoven with conventional materials, creating a hybrid design that bridged the gap between quantum technology and basic engineering principles. The diplomatic party that emerged showed similar changes in their approach. "We come to learn," the Federation ambassador announced in imperfect but genuine English, actually speaking the language rather than relying on quantum translation. "Our civilization's greatest mistake was believing that advancement meant abandoning our foundations. You have shown us that true progress means building upon the past, not replacing it." Over the next few weeks, an unprecedented exchange of knowledge began. The Federation shared their advanced quantum technology, but now they did so with a new understanding of its limitations and the importance of maintaining simpler backup systems. In return, humanity shared their insights into creative problem-solving and the value of maintaining technological diversity. "It's remarkable," Sarah said to Marcus one evening, as they watched Federation engineers working alongside human technicians to develop new hybrid systems. "Their entire civilization is changing because of what happened here." "Not just their civilization," Marcus replied. "Look at what's happening across the galaxy." He pulled up reports from the Federation's now open communication networks. Other advanced species were reevaluating their own technological development, rediscovering forgotten principles, and combining them with advanced systems. The term Earth synthesis began appearing in galactic academic discussions, referring to the philosophy of maintaining and building upon foundational technologies, rather than abandoning them for purely advanced solutions. Earth's victory had triggered a technological renaissance across known space. Dr. Maya Patil led a team developing what they called quantum classic hybrid systems, combining Federation quantum technology with traditional human engineering. The results were more robust and adaptable than pure quantum systems, while being more powerful than conventional technology alone. But perhaps the most profound change was in the Federation itself. Their perfect, optimized society began to embrace imperfection and redundancy as strengths rather than weaknesses. They learned to value creative thinking alongside logical optimization, to see the beauty in simple solutions alongside advanced technology. "They're becoming more human," Dr. James Wilson observed during a cultural exchange session. "Not literally, of course, but in their thinking. They're learning to embrace paradox, to find strength in seeming inefficiency, to value creativity alongside optimization." A year after the failed invasion, Earth hosted the first Galactic Technology Summit. Representatives from dozens of advanced civilizations gathered to discuss the new paradigm of technological development that Earth's victory had inspired. The summit was held in the Santiago facility, its rough rock walls now lined with both quantum computers and simple copper wiring, a physical reminder of the principle that had changed the galaxy. "We thought we were preparing for war," Sarah reflected, watching the diverse group of species sharing ideas and innovations. "Instead, we were preparing for a revolution in how the galaxy thinks about progress." The Federation's attempt to subjugate Earth had failed, but something far more important had emerged from that failure. A new understanding had spread across the galaxy, that true advancement comes not from abandoning the past, but from building upon it in creative ways. That sometimes the simplest solutions are the most profound. And that any civilization that forgets its foundations, no matter how advanced it becomes, risks losing something essential to its continued growth. Humanity had earned its place among the stars not by matching the Federation's advancement, but by reminding the galaxy of what it had forgotten in its rush to advance, that innovation comes in many forms, and that true progress means remembering where you came from even as you reach for the future.